Hello, Morning View family. Sean and I wanted to come to you and make a few recommendations of how we can use this time of social distancing well, how we can redeem the time. And I wanted to point out at the end of 2 Timothy how Paul, even in his time of prison isolation, requested that the parchments and the books be brought to him. He wanted to use the time well. And so we have a few recommendations for you. The one that I want to start with is J.C. Ryle's Holiness. Sean has referenced it in his sermon recently. I know that Jordan has used it in the youth group. I use it personally as I'm discipling several young men in the church. We're going through it right now. It was written about 150 years ago, and it is still incredibly relevant. It's written in a very timeless manner. It's very easy to engage. It's very palatable. It's not overly heady. He deals with practical things like sin and our sin nature and the fall and what is holiness, what is righteousness, how can we pursue these things, how do we walk in the Holy Spirit. All of this is addressed. It's a wonderful book. I highly recommend it to you.
A book that I wanted to recommend to our families, and this is very apropos for this time, it's called The Techwise Family by Andy Crouch. And this is a very practical book, just giving directives to you and your family about how to set good standards in the home, biblical standards in the home, for monitoring technology, for safeguarding your family's purity, and for not allowing our devices to encroach in a very unhealthy way on our family time. He draws upon a lot of research from George Barna. Again, it's a very practical work and very practical stories and backgrounds about how to implement these things in families. I know we're at a time right now with social distancing due to the coronavirus going on where we're heavily dependent upon technology. But what we want to keep is a healthy dynamic in our homes. We don't want to just sit our children and family members on screens throughout the day. And so this is a very helpful resource that I would encourage. It's not very thick, as you can see, but very handy resource to help you and your family make good decisions in this area.
Another useful volume, a Christian classic, is John Bunyan's Pilgrims Progress. It's a beloved book throughout church history. Charles Spurgeon read it at least once a year throughout his life. It follows, it's an allegory, it's a picture story about how Christian is saved, and he travels from the city of destruction to the celestial city, and it follows him through the ups and downs of a normal Christian life. And it's very helpful for your personal piety, your personal devotion, to think through the dynamics of the Christian life and spiritual warfare and the dangers that are all around us, the dangers of the world. And so I highly commend that to you. There are several modern versions of it that have modernized language if you find the older language hard to get through. And so you can see that, and I think there's even free audio versions of it online if you'd like to listen to it through AudioVox and other apps like that.
Another book that I wanted to recommend, this was first published by J.I. Packer in 1984. The second edition was published in 2005. I checked Amazon yesterday, and you can still get copies of this. It's J.I. Packer's Keep in Step with the Spirit. I actually used this recently for my apologetics class for Cornerstone, and it is an excellent book. J.I. Packer, of course, is a well-known Reformed author, and he does a great job talking about just the ministry of the Holy Spirit, the work of the Holy Spirit, how to understand the theology of the Holy Spirit, but applying it in a very personal way, especially for personal holiness. And so this is a book I would greatly encourage. Again, it's not too thick, too cumbersome, but an excellent resource in terms of your personal spiritual growth.
Finally, related to Pilgrims Progress, this is called The Dangerous Journey. It's an illustrated and slightly abridged version of John Bunyan's Pilgrims Progress. And I have several young children at home, and whenever this book is pulled out, they are glued to it. And they love the story. It's well illustrated, especially for young boys, because there's pictures of dragons and knights and warfare and things like that. It's a very helpful, very accessible children's version of Pilgrim's Progress.
And my children love that book as well. We've used it often. Thank you all for tuning in.